The Lago 1 Experience. The Lago 1 was an early medium tank prototype that was made by Sweden in 1938. Only 6 of these odd-looking tanks was ever made, being protected by 34mm on both the front and side, while the rear only had 24mm of armor. As for the turret, it had 34mm on the front mantlet, 28mm on the side, and 20mm on the rear. Very little info of this tank survives today. We know around 6 prototypes tanks was ever made, and it was an attempt to make a reliable medium tank similar to the German Panzer III for the Swedish army, as at the time it only had lightly armored tanks like the Strata M/31 and the Strata M/37 tank it. From what we know, the Lago 1 was armed with a capable 37mm can M/38 cannon like the one found on the Strata M/41. For 1938, it was still a powerful cannon and could fire 3 different types of shells. First being an APBC shell with 59mm of pen, secondly a APHE shell with 55mm of pen, and lastly a APDS shell with 115mm of pen. Now in real life, the Lago 1 would never see actual combat, being nothing more than a drop-in board for Swedish engineers to further develop and iron out its design. Throughout 1938 to as late as 1948, 4 different tanks from the Lago series would be made, like the Strata M/42, Strata M.42TH, Strata M/42A, and lastly the Strata M/42TV. In War Thunder, you can play this odd-looking tank and maybe make out how it would perform in real life. Being placed at BR 2.7 rank 2, it fights mainly early to mid World War II tanks like American M5A1 Stuarts, M4s, M10s, German Panzer J, Panzer IV F2s, Stuke 3s, and lastly some Soviet tanks like the T-80s and Gas MMAAs. Some pros of the Lago 1 tank are: it's one of the only few low-tier tanks that has access to an APDS shell, having a fast reload rate, it can keep enemies at bay, and lastly, for a medium tank, it can be somewhat agile, having a top speed of 45 km an hour. However, 2 cons of the Lago tank are: the armor is not the best, being able to be pinned by most tanks you might encounter, and lastly, its stock shell and APHE shell is not the best at its BR, only having 55mm of pen and 51mm of pen respectively. Overall, the Lago 1 is a decent tank to play. One thing I do have to say is its 2 shells you get are, to put it best, kinda buns, making you have to primarily shoot at people's side armor to get a kill, as at this BR you are mostly dealing with early M4 Shermans and T-4s, which are impenetrable unless you have the APDS shell. Speaking of APDS, it's definitely a nice addition, as in a way it plays as a psychological tool to make your enemies think twice before engaging you. With all that being said, I would give the Lago 1 a 6.5 out of 10.